Morning, and I hope you're all doing well. The topic for this video is Pythagoras 3, finding the shorter sides. In the previous lesson in Pythagoras 2, what you learned was how to work out the hypotenuse. Remember the longest side, which is the diagonal side, that we call that the hypotenuse. So the topic today is finding the shorter sides. Just quickly as a starter, please pause the video, draw these triangles in your books, and work out what the longest side is for A, B, C, and D. Remember to use the formula for Pythagoras, which is a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Okay, so pause the video. When you're ready, press play. Okay, question 1a. So what do I do to work out the longest side? A squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So remember the rule, square both sides, add them up, and then square root it. What is 3 squared gives me 9, 4 squared gives me 16, add them up, 9 plus 16 is 25, and the square root of 25 gives me 5 centimeters. Remember to write down your units, okay? Same thing here, 4 squared gives me 16, 9 squared gives me 36, okay? So 9 squared, which is, 81, plus 4 squared is equal to 16, add them up, that gives you 97, and the square root of 97 gives you about 9.8 to 1 decimal places. Okay, so if you've got 9.8 centimeters, then that's great. What about here now? Same thing. Question 1c, you do 7 squared plus 3 squared. So what is 7 squared? 49 plus 3 squared, which is 9. 49 plus 9 is 58. Now what do we do to the answer to work out the longest side? We're going to do the square root of 58, which gives me about 7.6 centimeters to 1 decimal place. Finally, 1d, to work out the longest side, the two shorter sides are given. So what do I do using the rule? Square both of them. 5 squared is 25 plus 10 squared, which is 100. 25 plus 100 is equal to 125, and the square root of 125 would be about 11.2 centimeters to 1 decimal place. If you forgot how to do this, please watch my video on Pythagoras 2, finding the hypotenuse. Okay? All right, moving on. So, like I said, the topic for this video is we know how to work out the longest side, but there may be a question where they may ask you to work out the shortest side of the triangle. In this case here, let's call it x. We don't know what it is. Okay? So, what have we been given? We've been given one of the shorter sides, 7 centimeters, and also we've been given the hypotenuse, the longest side, 10 centimeters. So what can I do? Step one is always label the sides. So that's A, that's B, and my C. Remember, C would always be my longest side. It doesn't matter A or B, you can switch them around. Okay, but in this case here, we'll call X A, 7, we'll call that B, and 10 we'll call that C. What is my formula for Pythagoras? A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. Plug them in, you know how to substitute values in, right? Okay, so A squared plus 7 squared is equal to 10 squared. What is 7 squared? It gives me 49. 10 squared gives me 100. And you guys know how to solve equations involving powers. We've done a lesson on this. Square root 49 on both sides. Sorry, subtract 49 from both sides. And that gives me A squared is equal to 51. I want to work out what my A is. If A squared is equal to 51, to work out what A is by itself, I would have to square root 51, and that gives me 7.1 centimeters. So therefore, your shorter side, X, is 7.1 centimeters. Okay? All right. So just a quick tip. Always when you're rounding it, if you want, you can round it to 1 decimal places, but put in brackets 1 dp. And just a quick top tip, to be working out the smaller sides, just square the two sides that you're given, subtract the bigger one from the smaller one, then square root the answer. So please copy down that tip there. Fairly straightforward. Anytime they ask you to work out the smaller side, just square the two sides you've been given, okay? Then subtract them from each other, then square root your answer. If your answer is not a square number, then you can always square root using your calculator, okay, to make things easier. Okay, so please make a note of that tip. Okay, let's look at this example as well. In fact, what I'd like you to do is actually pause the video and copy down this triangle in your books and have a go yourself. Then press play when you're ready to carry on. Okay, let's go through this. So remember, this is my hypotenuse. So if I label all of the sides, that would be my C. So to form the equation, it would be x squared plus 3 squared is equal to 7 squared. And then you can solve the equation. It will look like that, okay? So 7 squared is 49, 3 squared is 9. Subtract them from each other, and then square root your answer. That's all it is, okay? So just a quick tip. 7 squared, what is that? 49. 3 squared, what is that? 9. 49 subtract 9 gives me what? 40. And then to work out what your x is, just square root of 40, use your calculator, and that'll give you 6.32 to 2 decimal places. Okay? So we've so far written out the equation a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, filled in our information and rearranged to find the missing side, but it's helpful to be able to do it in our heads sometimes. So this is just a simple way of remembering it. Anytime they ask you to work out what the hypotenuse is, just square root the sum of the two squares. So please make a note of this. This is a nice way to remember it. Anytime they ask you to work out any of the shorter sides, okay, just square root the difference of the two squares that you've been given. Okay, that's all you have to do. So this one here, what do? I do square root of the sum of both squares. So 3 squared plus 5 squared, add them up and then square root your answer. Okay, you could do all of that in one step, and I'll give you the square root of 34. Okay, or if you put that in your calculator, okay, that will give you about 5.83 to 2 decimal places. What about this one here? Are we looking for the hypotenuse now for the second example? No. We need to work out x, which is our shorter side. So what do? Just square root the difference of the two squares. So square root of 7 squared minus 4 squared, and that'll give you an answer of square root of 33. And if you put that in your calculator, you can try it out yourself. That would give you about 5.74 roughly to 2 decimal places. So this is a nice way to remember how to find the hypotenuse and how to find one of the shorter sides. Thank you so much for listening.